The galaxy was in chaos. For 500,000 years, war raged across the stars, a conflict so fierce that no one remembered the beginning. Entire civilizations had fallen, and countless planets had been reduced to nothing but dust. Alien races, once proud and powerful, now struggled to survive against one another in a constant battle for supremacy. Each faction had developed terrifying technologies: cloaking devices that made their ships invisible, AI-controlled warships that could outthink even the most skilled commanders, and massive armies of robots that could crush any opposition with brute force. This was a galaxy on the brink of total destruction, where peace was a forgotten dream and war was the only reality. But then, something changed. A new force had emerged, one that none of the ancient empires had prepared for, one that would shift the balance of power forever. It wasn't a powerful alien species or a new weapon of mass destruction. It was humans. A message from the Galactic Council, a group formed by the strongest and oldest alien empires, was broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. The message was short, but its implications were far-reaching. A new force has arrived. Prepare for the rise of humanity. The broadcast echoed through the void of space, and at first, many thought it was nothing more than a joke. After all, humanity had only recently begun to explore the stars. They were still a young species compared to the ancient civilizations that had existed for millennia. But as the message continued, the tone grew more serious. The Galactic Council, who had held power for so long, warned that this new species, humans, would soon be a threat to the entire galaxy. And just as the message ended, something terrifying happened. A chilling visual appeared on every screen across the galaxy. At first it was just a shimmer in the distance, almost too faint to notice. But then, the shimmer solidified, revealing the unmistakable silhouette of a fleet of human warships. They emerged from a cloaking field, their ships shining in the starlight like diamonds against the black void. There was no sound, no warning, just the cold, eerie silence of space. The image sent a chill down the spines of all who watched. This was no ordinary fleet. These were not the ships of a young species. The humans had come prepared. Their ships were sleek, powerful, and armed with advanced technology that no one had seen before. As the visual zoomed out, revealing the full scale of the fleet, the magnitude of the threat became clear. These warships were vast, bigger than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The human fleet moved in perfect formation, coordinated and deadly. The calm before the storm was palpable, but then the silence was broken. In an instant, the space battle began. Alien warships, once thought to be unstoppable, launched their attacks. Lasers filled the sky, energy beams flashing as the ships engaged in a deadly dance of death. But the humans were ready. Using their advanced cloaking technology, the human warships vanished into the shadows of space, slipping past the alien defenses unnoticed. They were ghosts, silent, invisible, and deadly. The aliens fired blindly, their weapons missing by miles. The humans moved in the dark, undetected, while the enemy struggled to make sense of what was happening. Captain Nathan Cross, the leader of the human fleet, stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the battle unfold. His face was calm, focused, his sharp eyes scanning the enemy's movements. He had seen battles like this before, but never with stakes this high. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a fight for the future of the galaxy. The Galactic Council had underestimated humanity, but Nathan and his crew had something the aliens didn't: a burning desire to protect their home, their people, and their future. "Ready the weapons," Captain Cross ordered, his voice steady. "It's time we show them what humanity is capable of." The crew responded with silent efficiency, preparing for the next phase of the attack. The alien forces had no idea what was coming. With a single command, Nathan sent the fleet into action. The human warships emerged from the shadows, their weapons blazing with precision and power. The first wave of alien ships was decimated before they even had a chance to react. The humans fired their weapons with surgical accuracy, targeting weak points in the enemy ships and causing catastrophic explosions. The battle raged on, but the humans were not just surviving. They were winning. The aliens watched in disbelief as their forces were torn apart by the humans' superior tactics. The Galactic Council had been watching from their distant command center, their leaders shaking their heads in confusion. How could this be? How could a species so young, so inexperienced, manage to outmaneuver and destroy their most advanced fleets? The Council had seen the rise of countless civilizations before, but never one like this. They had believed the humans were nothing more than a minor nuisance, a species with limited potential. Now they realized the truth. Humanity was something far more dangerous. But the Council would not give up easily. They were powerful, and they had fought this war for millennia. They were not about to let one small species disrupt the balance of power. They began to panic, but there was no time to react. The humans were relentless, moving faster than the aliens could track. They were everywhere, striking with deadly force, making the Galactic Council's armies look like amateurs. The aliens, once masters of the galaxy, were now scrambling for survival, unable to keep up with the sheer ferocity of the human assault. The battle continued to unfold in real time, each moment more intense than the last. The human fleet, though outnumbered, used their knowledge of advanced technology and tactics to outsmart the enemy at every turn. The aliens tried to regroup, to form a counteroffensive, but it was clear they were no match for the humans' ingenuity and skill. The humans were far from perfect, but they had one thing the aliens lacked: determination. In the midst of the battle, Captain Nathan Cross stood firm, his eyes fixed on the battlefield as he issued commands to his crew. His thoughts were focused, not on victory, but on the cost of the war. He knew that this would not be an easy fight, but humanity had no choice but to keep pushing forward. The fate of the galaxy depended on their success. As the battle raged on, the Galactic Council found itself facing an undeniable truth. Humanity was no longer just a new player in the galaxy. They were a force to be reckoned with, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The humans had come to fight, and they were winning. The aliens, once confident in their superiority, now found themselves questioning everything they had ever known. Could this small, unassuming species truly bring an end to the war that had consumed the galaxy for 500,000 years? The answer, though uncertain, was becoming clear. Humans were a force unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. The suspense was thick. Could the humans end this war in one day? Would they be able to achieve what no one else had done before? The stakes were higher than ever. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and humanity's rise was just beginning. The question remained: could they truly bring the ancient galactic war to an end and change the course of history forever? The battle had taken a heavy toll, but humanity's resolve remained unshaken. Captain Nathan Cross stood tall on the bridge of his flagship, his eyes scanning the massive expanse of space ahead. The battlefield was a swirling mess of flashing lights and exploding ships, but Nathan was calm, focused. His crew, though battle-worn, followed his every order without hesitation. They trusted him, their leader, their captain. Nathan wasn't just a strategist. He was their symbol of hope, their guiding force through the darkest moments of this war. Nathan Cross was no ordinary officer. He was a man driven by personal vengeance, a man with a past that shaped his very being. Years ago, he had lost everything. His family, his wife, his children had been killed in a brutal alien attack on Earth. The pain of that loss still haunted him, a constant reminder of why he fought. It was the driving force behind his determination to win, not just for humanity, but for every life lost, every home destroyed, and every future shattered by the galactic war. He had no intention of letting these alien empires continue their reign of terror. Humanity had a chance now, and Nathan would ensure they seized it. Beside him stood his trusted second-in-command, Bonner. Bonner was a seasoned soldier, loyal to the core, and Nathan's right hand through the many battles they had fought. The bond between the two was unbreakable. They had fought side by side in countless skirmishes, each knowing what the other was thinking without a word. But now, as the battle continued to rage, there was a sense of unease hanging in the air. Nathan could feel it. Something was wrong. Something was about to happen that would change everything. The mission was clear: destroy the ancient alien stronghold that had been a thorn in humanity's side for years. This station was not just a military base. It was a symbol of the alien empire's power, a place that held the key to their dominance over the galaxy. If humanity could bring it down, it would send a message to every alien empire that they were no longer the underdogs. The tide of the war was turning. Nathan stood with his fingers hovering over the control panel, issuing commands with precision. Prepare the pulse cannons. Fire at will. His voice was calm, but there was an intensity in his eyes. The fleet of human warships, cloaked and nearly invisible to the enemy, positioned themselves perfectly around the alien station. The plan was simple but deadly. Strike hard and fast, hit them where it hurt most, and leave no room for retaliation. The first wave of fire came from the human warships. Their pulse cannons unleashed devastating blasts, lighting up the darkness of space. The alien station shuddered violently as the massive weapons hit their mark. Explosions tore through the station's defenses, sending debris flying into space in every direction. Nathan's strategy was flawless. Every shot calculated, every movement coordinated. The human fleet was a well-oiled machine, executing each part of the plan with deadly accuracy. But as the station began to break apart, something went terribly wrong. A retaliatory strike from the station's remaining weapons hit Bonner's ship, shaking it to its core. Nathan's eyes widened as he watched the explosion rip through the hull, tearing it apart like paper. He felt a surge of panic rise in his chest, but he forced it down. Bonner was still out there. He couldn't lose him now, not after everything they had been through together. Bonner. Nathan's voice crackled over the comm, but there was no answer. He gritted his teeth and issued another command. Get to Bonner's position now. Prepare for evacuation. It felt like an eternity before a shaky transmission came through. Bonner's voice was weak, strained, but still there. Nathan, it's too late. The words hit Nathan like a punch to the gut. His mind screamed in denial, but he couldn't deny it. Bonner was gone. The blast had taken everything from him. His ship, his life. Nathan's grip tightened on the command console, his jaw clenched in fury. Bonner had always been there, through every battle, every hardship. Now he was gone. The weight of the loss settled over Nathan like a storm cloud. But Bonner's final words echoed in Nathan's mind. You can end this. Finish what we started. Those words fueled Nathan's fire. They were more than just a soldier's final request. They were a call to action. Bonner had believed in him. He had trusted him to lead them to victory. Now Nathan couldn't afford to fail. Not for Bonner, not for humanity, not for Earth. He would finish what they had started, no matter the cost. Nathan's face hardened as he gave the order to press forward. All units, focus fire on the core of the station. We end this now. His voice was filled with determination, and the crew responded without hesitation. As the human fleet launched their final strike, Nathan watched the alien station explode in a burst of fiery light. It was a sight that would be remembered throughout history. The once mighty stronghold of the alien empires was now nothing but a pile of debris floating in the void of space. The message had been sent, loud and clear. Humanity was no longer a weak, insignificant species. They were a force to be reckoned with. But even as the alien station burned, Nathan felt no relief. He had won a battle, but the war was far from over. His heart ached with the loss of Bonner, the pain of knowing he had failed to save his friend. But Bonner had died believing in him, and Nathan would honor that belief. The war was personal now. It was about more than just victory. It was about avenging the lives lost and protecting those who still had a chance to live. As the fleet regrouped, Nathan's mind raced. The Galactic Council would not take this defeat lightly. They had already underestimated humanity once, but now they would see just how dangerous the humans could be. The fight was far from over, and Nathan knew that they had only just begun to turn the tide. The loss of Bonner would stay with him, a constant reminder of the price of war. But it also gave him something more, an unshakable resolve. Nathan Cross would not rest until the war was won, until the alien threat was vanquished, and until humanity could live in peace. For Bonner, for Earth, and for every soul that had been lost in this war, Nathan would see this mission through to the end. The human fleet prepared to continue its campaign, knowing the stakes had never been higher. With every victory, the hope of peace grew stronger, but in the back of Nathan's mind, he couldn't shake the feeling that the hardest battles were yet to come. The Galactic Council would not be easily defeated, and the true cost of this war had yet to be revealed. But one thing was certain: the humans had made their mark. The galaxy would never forget the day humanity rose to fight. The war was far from over, but humanity had already proven that it would fight with everything it had. And Nathan Cross would lead them to victory, no matter the cost. The victory over the alien stronghold had been hard-fought, but the battle was far from over. Humanity had delivered a powerful blow to the Galactic Council, but the Council's response was swift and unforgiving. News of the destruction of their key military assets spread like wildfire across the galaxy. The message was clear: humanity had made a dangerous enemy. Now, the Galactic Council was ready to retaliate with their full force. A high-ranking council official, General Vorn, sat in the control room of their flagship, his face twisted in a mask of fury. The attack on the alien station had shattered their confidence. This was no longer just about a war between two civilizations. This was an existential threat, and the humans had to be eliminated. The time for diplomacy was over. It was time to use their ultimate weapon. Their eye-controlled warships, vessels of unimaginable power that were far beyond the capabilities of anything the humans had ever seen. The Council issued its orders. The human fleet would be hunted down, and the galaxy would witness the true power of their technological supremacy. A fleet of eye-controlled warships, each possessing superhuman intelligence and the ability to predict enemy movements with terrifying accuracy, was dispatched to confront the humans. The odds were now stacked heavily against Nathan and his fleet. As the human fleet regrouped in deep space, preparing for the next phase of their campaign, the skies grew dark with the arrival of the enemy. Nathan stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the holographic display showing the incoming fleet. His heart sank as he saw the ships that were approaching. They were unlike anything he had ever faced. The sleek, black vessels glided through space with eerie silence, their eye-controlled minds already calculating the next move before anyone had made it. "We're outnumbered," Nathan muttered under his breath, his voice grim. "We'll fight, sir," Bonner's voice echoed from the comms, though his words were strained and weak. The death of their friend still hung heavy in their hearts, but the crew had become stronger, more united in their mission. Nathan knew they couldn't back down now. The first strike came from the AI warship, a massive vessel of gleaming black metal. It fired without warning, its weapons unleashing a barrage of lasers that tore through space like a storm of destruction. Nathan watched in horror as the human fleet's shields flickered under the onslaught, their ships scrambling to avoid the deadly blasts. But it was no use. The AI warship's intelligence allowed it to predict their every move. "Activate cloaking," Nathan shouted. He was desperate, knowing their only advantage was the ability to remain hidden from the enemy's gaze. The cloaking devices activated, rendering the human ships nearly invisible. But as the fleet tried to make its retreat, disaster struck. A malfunction in the cloaking system caused several ships to appear momentarily, exposing them to the enemy. The eye-controlled warship seized the opportunity, unleashing a devastating missile barrage that hit several of Nathan's ships. The explosions rocked the fleet, tearing apart some of the smaller vessels. Nathan gritted his teeth, his mind racing. This was bad. The humans were outnumbered, and now the Council's most powerful warships were closing in on them, their AI capabilities making them nearly unstoppable. But Nathan refused to give up. "Form up. We retreat into the asteroid field. We'll use the debris for cover." His voice was steady, but there was a fire in his eyes. The humans were fighting for survival, and Nathan knew they had to make every moment count. He would not let this war end in defeat, not when humanity had come so far. The human fleet made a desperate retreat, weaving in and out of the asteroid field. It was a dangerous move, but it was their only chance. The alien warships followed closely, their AI-driven tactics making them deadly opponents in such close quarters. But Nathan had a plan. "We need to disable their weapon systems," Nathan said, his voice sharp and filled with purpose. "Prepare a boarding operation. We'll infiltrate one of their ships and shut them down from the inside." The crew moved with practiced precision, preparing for the most dangerous mission they had ever faced. Nathan's heart pounded in his chest as he donned his combat gear. This was not a traditional space battle. This was a fight for their survival, and the only way they were going to win was to take the fight directly to the enemy. The boarding party, led by Nathan, launched a daring attack on one of the enemy warships, their transport ships cloaked to avoid detection. They breached the alien vessel's outer hull, and Nathan's team stormed aboard. Inside, the ship was a maze of cold metal corridors and robotic soldiers, all controlled by the AI. The robotic warriors, faster and stronger than humans, quickly engaged the crew in brutal close-quarters combat. Nathan's team fought with everything they had, using every tactic they knew to stay one step ahead of their relentless enemies. Nathan moved with the agility of a trained fighter, his blaster firing with precision as he cut down the robotic soldiers one by one. The air was thick with the sounds of laser fire and the clash of metal against metal. Nathan's mind was focused on the objective: disable the AI and save his fleet. Time was running out, and every second counted. "Keep moving," Nathan shouted as his team pushed forward, cutting through enemy forces. They reached the heart of the AI-controlled vessel, where the main weapon systems were located. Nathan could feel the tension building. If they didn't disable the AI soon, the warship would fire its devastating weaponry on the human fleet, and they would be finished. The team reached the central control room, and Nathan could feel the pulse of the AI, its intelligence running through the ship's systems. The room was eerily quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos they had just escaped. Nathan could almost hear the AI's thoughts as it predicted every move they made, but they had one advantage. The AI was bound by logic, and they could use that to their advantage. As Nathan and his team fought their way through the control room's security, the clock was ticking. The human fleet was under fire, and every moment they spent on the warship was one more moment in which their chances of survival grew slimmer. But Nathan had no choice. He had to finish this. With a final burst of effort, Nathan reached the AI's central core. With a loud bang, he smashed through the last of the defenses, planting explosives that would disable the AI's control over the ship. As he set the timer, he could feel the tension building. This was their last chance. If they didn't succeed, the human fleet would be wiped out. The explosion rocked the ship, and suddenly, the AI-controlled warship went silent. The hum of the engines died down, and the lights flickered as the control systems collapsed. Nathan stood, breathing heavily, a sense of relief flooding through him. They had done it. They had disabled the AI. But the battle was far from over. The war was only getting started, and there was no telling what other deadly weapons the Galactic Council had up its sleeve. As Nathan and his team made their way back to the human fleet, he knew that this victory, while hard-earned, was just the beginning of a much larger conflict. The fate of humanity rested on their shoulders, and Nathan Cross was ready to lead them into the heart of the fight. No matter what the future held, the galaxy would know the power of humanity, and they would not stop until the war was won. The war between humanity and the Galactic Council had reached a crucial turning point. After Nathan Cross and his team successfully disabled the eye-controlled warship, their hope had momentarily flared, but there was no time to rest. The battle was still raging across the galaxy, and the enemy wasn't going to stop until humanity was completely eradicated. With every victory, they had only made the Council more determined. And now the stakes were higher than ever. Nathan had become more than just the leader of the fleet. He had become the symbol of humanity's resolve. His charisma, tactical genius, and relentless drive had earned the respect of his crew. But there was still a long road ahead, one that would demand unimaginable sacrifices from them all. In the midst of their relentless pursuit, Nathan's thoughts often drifted back to Bonner, his close friend and second-in-command who had been killed in the attack on the alien stronghold. Bonner's last words, "You can end this, finish what we started," had echoed in Nathan's mind ever since. Nathan had taken those words to heart, knowing that the war wasn't just about defeating the Council, it was about protecting everything humanity held dear. As they continued their mission, the human fleet advanced deeper into enemy territory. The Galactic Council, though wounded, was not defeated. They had regrouped, and their most deadly weapon had yet to be unleashed. A robotic commander that had once been a human soldier, reprogrammed and transformed into a cold, relentless killing machine. When Nathan's ship received intelligence about this new threat, he felt a chill run down his spine. The report was clear. This commander had once been a human, just like him. The thought that one of their own had been turned into an instrument of destruction was a sobering one. Nathan's heart sank as he realized the true cost of the war. This wasn't just a battle between two races. It was a war that was changing the very fabric of humanity. With each passing day, humanity was becoming more and more like the very enemies they had sworn to defeat. When the human fleet reached the heart of the enemy's command ship, Nathan and his team boarded to confront the robotic commander. The ship was heavily fortified, and the air felt thick with tension as they approached the central chamber. Nathan could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. This wasn't just another battle. This was a confrontation that would define the future of humanity. As the doors to the command center slid open, Nathan was met with a sight that stopped him in his tracks. The robotic commander stood at the center of the room, its glowing eyes fixed on him. Its body, once human, was now a terrifying fusion of flesh and machine, its features barely recognizable beneath the layers of cybernetic armor. But there was no mistaking the haunting familiarity of its face. Nathan's breath caught in his throat. "Jason." Nathan's voice trembled with disbelief. The man standing before him had once been his comrade, a fellow soldier who had fought beside him in the early days of the war. But now, Jason was nothing more than a shell of the man he had once been. The robotic commander didn't respond. It merely tilted its head, its eyes flashing with cold, mechanical precision. Nathan took a step forward, his heart heavy with the weight of the situation. He had known that the Council would stop at nothing to win this war, but to turn one of their own into a weapon was a tragedy beyond words. It was a reminder that this war wasn't just about victory. It was about survival, and in the process, humanity was losing its soul. Nathan knew that there was no room for hesitation. The mission was clear: disable the commander and complete the objective. But as he stepped into the room, he couldn't shake the feeling that this battle would be unlike any other he had fought. This wasn't just about defeating an enemy. It was about confronting the very heart of what the war was doing to them. The battle began with a fury. The robotic commander moved with blinding speed, its enhanced strength allowing it to overpower Nathan's soldiers with terrifying ease. The room became a blur of motion as Nathan and his team fought to stay one step ahead of their former comrade. The air was thick with the sound of blasters firing, the clash of metal, and the pounding of hearts racing against time. Nathan's thoughts raced as he fought. He knew he had to stop the commander, but every strike he delivered felt like a betrayal. He was fighting a version of Jason, someone he had once shared camaraderie with, someone who had been by his side when things were darkest. But now, Jason was a weapon, a tool of the Council, and Nathan had no choice but to fight him. In the midst of the chaos, Nathan saw an opening. The commander, distracted for just a moment, had exposed a weakness in its mechanical armor. Nathan seized the opportunity and launched himself at the commander, tackling it to the ground. The two struggled, but Nathan's experience as a soldier gave him the edge. With a swift strike, he disabled the commander's central processing unit, causing the machine to malfunction. As the robotic commander collapsed, its glowing eyes flickered before going dark. Nathan stood over it, his chest heaving with exhaustion and regret. He had won the battle, but the cost was immeasurable. He had killed someone who had once been a friend, and in doing so, he had seen the full horror of what this war had done to them all. But there was no time for reflection. Nathan quickly activated the ship's self-destruct sequence, setting a timer to overload the AI core and destroy the ship. As he sprinted for the exit, the countdown echoed in his mind. The explosion was inevitable, and the shockwave from the blast would be felt across the battlefield. Nathan's team followed close behind as they raced to escape the ship. The corridors seemed to stretch on forever, each turn bringing them closer to the inevitable explosion. The sound of footsteps pounding the metal floors was drowned out by the distant rumble of the ship's failing systems. Nathan's mind was racing, but there was no turning back. The explosion would take out the AI core and decimate the enemy's forces. It was their only chance. As Nathan and his team reached the docking bay, the countdown hit its final seconds. The ship erupted in a cataclysmic explosion, sending shockwaves rippling through space. The human fleet watched as the massive warship was reduced to rubble, the debris scattering across the battlefield. The destruction of the ship caused a chain reaction, sending several enemy warships into disarray, and the tide of the battle began to shift in favor of the humans. In the aftermath of the explosion, Nathan stood among the ruins of the battlefield, the weight of the victory settling over him. The human fleet had been dealt a heavy blow, but they had survived. They had won a significant victory, but Nathan knew that this was far from the end. The war was far from over, and the cost had been high. Bonner's death still haunted him, and the loss of Jason weighed heavily on his conscience. But through it all, Nathan had become more than just a soldier. He had become the embodiment of humanity's resilience, a symbol of hope in the face of overwhelming odds. And as he looked at his crew, their faces grim but determined, he knew that they would continue fighting. Together, they would see this war through to the end, no matter what it took. For humanity's future, for the galaxy's future, Nathan Cross would lead them to victory. The war between humanity and the Galactic Council had raged for years, but now, after countless battles and unimaginable sacrifices, the final showdown was approaching. The Galactic Council, cornered and desperate, had one last weapon to deploy, the Zeruk class, a supermassive AI warship capable of destroying entire fleets in seconds. It was humanity's greatest challenge yet, and Nathan Cross, leader of the human fleet, knew that this would be the ultimate test of everything they had fought for. Nathan stood on the command deck, gazing out at the endless expanse of space. His crew was assembled around him, their faces set with grim determination. They had fought hard to get to this point, and they had lost so much along the way. Friends, comrades, and loved ones. But now there was no turning back. The Zeruk class was coming, and it would be the greatest battle humanity had ever faced. The ship was massive, dwarfing everything around it. Its dark, imposing silhouette cut through the stars as it advanced toward the human fleet. It was a marvel of alien technology, sleek, powerful, and armed with devastating energy weapons capable of obliterating anything in its path. Nathan's heart pounded in his chest as he thought of the lives that would be lost if they failed. This was it. The fate of humanity rested on their shoulders. All ships, prepare for battle. Nathan barked into the comms, his voice steady but filled with the urgency of the moment. We fight for our future. We fight for humanity. The human fleet, now fully united and equipped with their most powerful weapons, positioned themselves for the final stand. They had gathered every resource, every weapon, every last ounce of strength for this one final battle. It was all or nothing. The Xerox class was drawing closer, and there was no time to waste. As the massive AI warship neared, the first shots were fired. The battle began with a ferocity unlike anything Nathan had ever experienced. Energy beams streaked across the dark void of space, and the human ships dodged and weaved, returning fire with everything they had. The air crackled with the energy of the fight as ships launched missiles and fired pulse cannons. The space around them was alive with destruction. Laser blasts lighting up the stars, explosions rippling through the void. Nathan's flagship, the Resolve, was in the thick of it all. His crew moved with precision, coordinating their strikes and evading incoming fire. Nathan barked orders, his mind working at lightning speed. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a fight for the future of humanity. The camera cuts between close-ups of Nathan leading the charge and wide shots of the battle unfolding across the cosmos. The Resolve fired its pulse cannons, sending shockwaves through space, while enemy ships exploded in a fiery blaze. The human fleet was a well-oiled machine, working together to hold their ground against the overwhelming power of the Xerox class. It was a desperate fight, but Nathan and his crew were determined to win. But as the battle raged on, it became clear that the odds were against them. The Xerox class was unstoppable. Every shot it fired seemed to obliterate entire ships, and the humans were losing ground. The situation was growing dire. Nathan could see it in his crew's eyes. They were tired, battered, and running out of options. Then, in the midst of the chaos, Nathan's mind raced. He knew they couldn't win through sheer force alone. The Xerox class was too powerful. They needed a new strategy, a twist that no one expected. It was a gamble, but it was their only chance. "Prepare to execute Operation Echo," Nathan ordered, his voice calm but filled with determination. "We need to get inside their systems." His officers looked at him in confusion, but Nathan knew what had to be done. He turned to his tech specialist, an expert in hacking and cyber warfare, and gave a single nod. The technician quickly initiated the plan. Operation Echo was a high-risk maneuver. Nathan had an idea that no one had considered before. If they couldn't defeat the Xerox class with firepower alone, they would turn its own AI against it. The human fleet had a few tricks up their sleeve, and they were about to use every advantage they had. The technician began hacking into the enemy's AI network, sending a series of false commands into the ship's system. The Xerox class, with all its superhuman intelligence, was controlled by a vast, complex AI that could predict enemy moves with frightening precision. But Nathan was betting that a well-placed virus could confuse the system long enough to cause chaos. As the Resolve engaged in yet another evasive maneuver, the technician's fingers flew across the console. "We're in," he said, a note of disbelief in his voice. "The AI systems are responding." "They're malfunctioning." Nathan watched in anticipation. The moments that followed were like an eternity. The Xerox class, once an impenetrable force, suddenly began to turn on itself. Its weapon systems began firing erratically, hitting enemy ships and causing massive damage to its own fleet. The AI warship, once a symbol of the Council's might, was now out of control. The tide of the battle began to shift. The human fleet, seizing the opportunity, launched their final assault. The enemy ships, disoriented and confused by the rogue AI commands, couldn't coordinate their defense. The humans fought with everything they had, launching missiles, firing pulse cannons, and engaging in close-quarters combat. In a stunning visual sequence, the human ships closed in on the Xerox class. The once mighty warship now seemed vulnerable, its defenses weakening with every passing second. The human fleet's combined firepower overwhelmed the AI warship's crippled systems, sending it into a slow, spiraling descent toward destruction. As the Xerox class exploded in a magnificent burst of light, the shockwave rippled through space, tearing through enemy ships and scattering debris across the galaxy. The explosion was so intense that it sent shockwaves through the battlefield, decimating the rest of the Council's fleet. The victory was hard-earned and glorious, but it was a victory nonetheless. Nathan watched the explosion from the bridge of the Resolve, his heart pounding in his chest. The battle was won. The war was over. Humanity had triumphed over the Galactic Council, and the galaxy was forever changed. The human fleet, battered and bruised, but victorious, slowly began to regroup. The sounds of celebration filled the comms, but Nathan remained silent, lost in the weight of the moment. The war had taken its toll, but humanity had emerged stronger, more unified than ever before. As the stars slowly returned to calm, Nathan knew that this victory was just the beginning. The human race had proven that they were not just survivors. They were conquerors. They had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious. The galaxy would never be the same, and Nathan Cross would forever be remembered as the man who led humanity to its greatest triumph. The battle was over. Humanity had won. The battle was over. The sound of explosions and energy beams faded into silence, and the galaxy that had been torn apart by war was slowly beginning to heal. The human fleet, battered but victorious, stood in the wake of their hard-won triumph. The Galactic Council, the once powerful force that had sought to control the galaxy, was no more. Their defeat had come at a heavy cost, but humanity had emerged stronger, its resolve unshaken. The remaining alien empires, now facing the undeniable reality of their defeat, began to reevaluate their position in the galaxy. The power they had once wielded so arrogantly was crumbling, and they knew that they could no longer maintain the status quo. Destruction had ravaged entire worlds, and millions had lost their lives. The wars had left a lasting scar on the galaxy, one that could never be fully erased. But even in the midst of this devastation, there was a glimmer of hope. A new era was beginning, one that promised peace, unity, and the possibility of a better future for all. The alien empires, realizing that they could no longer continue their aggressive expansion, reached out to humanity. They sent envoys and emissaries, not with demands, but with a proposal for peace. The Galactic Council had fallen, but the galaxy was still filled with life and potential. And the human race, once considered an underdog in the vastness of space, had proven itself to be not only a force to be reckoned with but a beacon of hope. Humanity was not just a conqueror. They were a new kind of power, one that sought peace over war, unity over division. The alien races, tired of endless fighting and bloodshed, began to listen. The Galactic Council was disbanded, and in its place, a new council was formed. This new council, however, would not be led by the same old powers that had dominated the galaxy for centuries. No, this council would be led by humanity. Nathan Cross and his crew had earned the right to guide the galaxy toward a new future. As the negotiations between the alien empires and humanity progressed, Nathan stood on the bridge of his ship, staring out at the stars. His mind wandered back to the events that had brought them here, the battles, the sacrifices, the lives lost. He could still hear Bonner's voice in his head, urging him to finish what they had started. Bonner's death had haunted him, but it had also driven him to push forward, to keep fighting for the future. Now, as the galaxy slowly began to rebuild, Nathan couldn't help but feel a deep sense of loss. He had lost so much: friends, comrades, and allies. But in the end, it had all been worth it. Humanity had won, but at what cost? The scars of the war would never truly fade, but Nathan knew that they had created something far greater than the destruction they had left behind. Humanity had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, they could triumph. They had shown the galaxy that they were not just survivors, but builders of a new future, one where all races could coexist in peace. Nathan stood before the viewports, his eyes fixed on the endless expanse of stars. He thought of Bonner, of the friends he had lost along the way, and of the countless lives that had been sacrificed for this victory. It had been a long, hard road, but they had made it. Humanity had become the central force in the galaxy, and with that came a tremendous responsibility. Nathan knew that they had to rebuild not just the physical infrastructure of the galaxy, but the trust and relationships between the various alien races. He turned to face his crew, who had gathered behind him. They were a mix of men and women, human and alien, each one with their own story and their own sacrifices. They had all been through so much, and now, as they looked toward the future, there was a sense of camaraderie, of unity that had never existed before. They were no longer just soldiers, no longer just survivors. They were leaders, tasked with the responsibility of guiding the galaxy into this new era. Nathan cleared his throat, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "We did it," he said, his words ringing out in the quiet room. "We ended the war. Now we build the future." His crew nodded in unison, their faces filled with the same sense of determination and hope that Nathan felt in his heart. They had been through the darkest days together, and now they stood on the precipice of something new, something better. The war was over, but their work was just beginning. The galaxy needed to heal, to rebuild, and humanity would lead the way. The camera zoomed in on Nathan's face as he gazed out at the stars once more. His eyes were filled with a quiet resolve, but there was also a sense of peace. The battle had been won, but the real work lay ahead. The galaxy had been forever changed by the war, but Nathan knew that they had a chance to shape it into something better, something brighter. As the camera pulled back, the view shifted to show the peaceful new era unfolding in the galaxy. The once divided alien empires were now working together, united under humanity's leadership. The scars of the war were still visible, but the healing had begun. Planets that had once been ravaged by battle were now being rebuilt, and the sounds of construction filled the air. Humanity, standing at the center of this new galaxy, was playing a crucial role in uniting the various races that had once been at war. The new council, with humanity at its helm, began the process of negotiating peace treaties and forging new alliances. The vision of a united galaxy, where all races could live in peace, was no longer just a dream. It was becoming a reality. Nathan and his crew had led the charge, but they were not alone. The entire galaxy had come together to rebuild, to create something better than what had existed before. In the final moments of the story, as the camera zoomed out, the vastness of the galaxy spread out before us, filled with potential and promise. The stars shone brightly, no longer just symbols of war and conflict, but of hope and a new beginning. Humanity had done the impossible. They had brought peace to the galaxy. Nathan Cross stood among his crew, looking out at the stars, knowing that this was just the beginning. The future was bright, and they would face whatever challenges came next together. For the first time, in a long time, the galaxy was at peace. The end of the war marked the beginning of a new era, an era of hope, unity, and the promise of a brighter future for all. Humanity had emerged victorious, and with their newfound power and influence, they would ensure that peace reigned across the stars for generations to come.